let's move on to our next speaker, François van Heerden. He'll talk to us about test driving the Touptek 20 megapixel camera. Take it away, François.
Thank you very much, Paul. A great pleasure to be joining you tonight from Trenton, Ontario. Anyone who has met me or knows of me knows that I am a Cam user. I've used them for many years, but because I do a fair amount of outreach and I was also looking for another camera that would allow me to do some more extra work. I wanted a 20 megapixel and I wanted one that had additional functionality. So I'm going to take you on the test drive tonight that I did on the Gaspé. So I was actually out with a friend of mine near Saint-René-de-Matin. We spent a couple of days there and I unfortunately got clouded out, but before that I'd had a chance to do some imaging with this new camera. Let me take you and tell you why I got it. So let's start looking at the fact that if you are looking for an Astro video camera, there's all kinds. And it can get extremely confusing. There's many choices for any budget. So you have the Cam, you have the ZWO ASI series, you have QHY. But one of the interesting factors is that many of these components for those cameras are built by Touptek. So I started investigating them because price-wise, I figured I'd get a break. There are so many options, knowing what sensors to look at, knowing what number of pixels you want in those sensors. Do you want a color camera? Do you want a black and white? So a monochrome camera. The biggest thing that I looked at was, what do I really want to do? Do I want to capture lots of frames and post-process a lot of these? And that's in my future. This is what I'm now working towards. Or focus on outreach. And I wanted a camera that was sufficiently versatile to be able to do that. Give me quick views, let me see what I'm getting, and then be able to start detailed capture of the objects that I'm after. This takes a little bit of research. And if anyone ever wants any information, please feel free to reach out to me. I know people that use the ZWO and swear by them. They get phenomenal images, Dave Robitaille being one of these individuals, and another gentleman with him. But what you really want to look for is an industrial sensor versus the commercial grade sensors. This is critical because the industrial sensors can last far longer and handle a much wider range of temperatures. So look for anything that has an industrial grade sensor if you can. The next thing I want to do is, why did I choose Touptek? Well, I wanted something that was budget friendly. Now that I'm retired, I don't have the wealth of money that I used to have while I was working. It had to be multi-purpose, as I mentioned. But the most important aspect that I was really looking for was thermoelectric cooling of the sensor. Why? If you use any of these sensors at normal temperatures, you will get amp glow at the edges. And this is something that you then have to edit out. By using thermoelectric cooling, you are reducing the sensitivity, or not the sensitivity, but the amount of noise, rather, from the camera sensor. And so you get a much smoother image across. So the first thing I did with my Touptek when I got the 20 megapixel was use it indoors, and I ran it for 20 minutes. And I started to see after 20 minutes all of the warm pixels that you would expect in many sensors. Then I started to decrease the temperature. And by decreasing it every few minutes by 5 degrees centigrade, I took it down to minus 20. And I had a 100% flat background. Absolutely black, flat background. Perfect. This is what I was looking for. High quality components. Touptek uses And because they're right there where the technology is being manufactured, they get the best components that they can. Finally, I ordered online from AliExpress. Of course, I'm not flying out to China. Not going to happen, but I went online and started checking out the stores there. And from the time of order to delivery, and this was at the height of the lockdowns in the pandemic, was 4 weeks. I put in my order just before Christmas. The most important thing to recognize is that the label they put on the case actually shows that it was built 2 days after I put in my order. Then it was burned in for a full 24-hour period in the factory before it was packaged up and then finally shipped to me. This is the camera that I got. So there's the actual image that you're seeing here. And look at that price. If you look at ZWO, you look at Malincam for a 20 megapixel or 21, 22 megapixel, 26 megapixel, you're on the order of $3,000 US. This was $1,200 Canadian shipped. And yes, I paid $73 for DHL to ship it to me. But there were no taxes at the border. There was no duty. It came directly to my home. So here we go. On a limited budget, here was a perfect camera for me. When you get the package, it looks like this. You actually have this nice, robust case. It's beautifully sealed. Everything is laid out. There's just one deficiency in the camera or in the package that you get. The USB 3 cable is too short. You need to purchase a high-quality USB 3 cable that is 15 feet long. And if you want to go a greater distance than that, then you must have an active repeater cable. So a powered active repeater cable. But they're not that expensive. You get one of those for 40, 50 bucks Canadian, and you're laughing. You're all the way to the bank there. The next thing is, let's take a look at what the actual sensor size. It is a full 1-inch diagonal. Extremely sensitive. I can do binning of 1x1, 2x2, 3x3, and even 4x4. I only ever work at binning 1x1, and on really faint objects, I will go to 2x2. But for the most part, you can see the scale here of the frames per second and the resolution I'm working at. And most of my images, until I actually start now doing more detailed work, are in the 15 to 30 second range. And I'm going to show you what these cameras are capable of and what the Touptek is capable of. So what you're seeing here is Toupsky. This is the software you get with it. It's amazingly versatile, yet very easy to work with. You can start your settings in video mode, and then you go into the capture mode, the trigger mode, where you set the extended period of time that you want to expose the sensor to light. If you actually get close enough to look at this image, you'll see I was not perfectly in focus. But this is a 15-second image, and the core is overexposed. So I'm going to go through some of the settings that I actually use when I'm using Toupsky. So first of all, every image here is unretouched after the fact. I did not do any post-processing. I did not do filters. This is a single frame live from the camera into the computer, and that's it. So everyone is a 15-second exposure. I set my gain. So this improves the sensitivity of the actual sensor, the 1-inch sensor that's in it, at 20. I could go way higher. You never need to go higher than 20 for faint objects. My histogram, I adjust. 25 from the left, and I pull from the right back to 150. It gives me a nice balance. I do binning 1x1. As I say, no filters were used. The only thing that I will tell anyone that uses one of these cameras is find a darker spot in your frame where there's no stars, nothing bright. Make the smallest box you can there and do white balance on that. That is critical to you. Once you've set your white balance, now start to take your temperature down. I will frequently do the temperature ahead of time, take it down to minus 20 Celsius and just let it sit there. Doesn't matter what the temperature is outside. The only caution for you is that when you are finished your observing run, start to move the temperature up incrementally in 5 degrees Celsius increments and let it stabilize for about 3 to 5 minutes and then repeat until you bring it up to ambient temperature. As I said, no post-processing. If you've been in meetings here and you've seen what the astrophotographers that are really competent do, they get phenomenal images. But this is live. This is what I do when I do outreach. So here's the first one for you to look at. Everyone is a single frame. M13. And you can actually see in that 20 seconds, if you look, you will actually see there is a little galaxy up here. That is the NGC 6207 galaxy that is in the same field of view as M13. This is in 15 seconds with the sensor cooled down and with my settings set according to what I just presented earlier. When I actually run it through tools that will do identification of all the objects that are in the field of view, you'll see I even got IC 4617. So you are capable of getting some really faint objects. I should mention, every one of these images was taken with a Celestron C8. That was it, from my backyard in Trenton. It's a Bortle 5 sky, so it's fairly light polluted, and I'm still getting this kind of quality. Here is the Ring Nebula, and notice that flat background across the entire back. Absolutely stunning. You're getting the color. It's visible. The stars here, I was in focus this time. It's nearly pinpoint. When you actually zoom in, because this is a 20 megapixel camera, you can actually enlarge this. You could definitely have it printed and stick it on your wall if you wanted to. More to the point, when you go after some of the really bright objects, let's take a look at the Dumbbell Nebula. This was the first frame that I took before I started adjusting some of the actual other settings to try and get more detail. So you'll notice that the stars, there was a slight tracking error in this particular instance. As I grabbed this frame, I let it stabilize a bit more. This was the next frame after I played it. It took me about 5 minutes to get this. And there's the detail. You're actually starting to get the lobes of M27, the Dumbbell Nebula. You get those colors. That is a live, single frame, unprocessed, unstacked. No filters. This is exactly what these cameras are capable of. Of course, you want to go after other objects as well. And Andy, your 8-inch, if you put one of these cameras on it, you will get Stephan's Quintet. I know I've done it with a 10 megapixel camera that wasn't cooled, and I was able to get Stephan's Quintet with my backyard set up with my 8-inch. So you might want to think about it for the future. M11, the Wild Duck Cluster, is stunning, as you can see here. Thousands of stars in the field of view. This one blew me away with the number of stars that are there. You can tell I haven't processed this because there's no color in the stars. They're all showing up as white. if I did post-processing and I did it correctly, I would end up with the stars actually showing their actual colors. But when you present this on a screen, when you're doing outreach, it's spectacular. M17, the Omega Nebula, and you can see the extent to which the nebulosity extends away from what you would see at the eyepiece. Absolutely incredible detail, 15 seconds. This is on the screen. So this is one of the objects that I fall in love with every year. I want to go and get images of it. Again, notice there's no color to the stars. So you are seeing exactly what the camera is seeing. I have a couple of more images for you. This one of the Andromeda system, M31, M32, and M110. You can actually start to see in 15 seconds, the core is just blown out on the Andromeda galaxy, and you're getting the dust lanes. This actually extends even further beyond. Now, I was actually using a hyperstar. So this was actually taken at f1.9. And this was overblown at 15 seconds. I actually took, this one is actually down at around 10 seconds that I got this detail on this frame. My final slide is probably one of the most spectacular galaxies. This was also taken with the same setup that I've described to you, M82. And again, I did not get the flat black that I wanted on the background, but then the sky isn't actually that way. But look at the detail you're getting in the arms of this particular object. M82 shows up, and with my hyperstar, I get M81 and M82 in the same field of view. So the test drive, in my opinion, was a great success. This camera has exceeded my expectations with the, with the thermoelectric cooling in it. The sensitivity of the 20 megapixel is just far and away better than anything I have had in the past. And I hope this has been enlightening for you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Francois, for the presentation and the overview. Sounds like a great camera. Ennio, do we have any questions for Francois?
We have several questions and a few comments. So first, I'd like to start with Touptek, who is joining us from Chile. And he says that he has a couple of Touptek cameras, specifically the 26 megapixel cameras, the APS-C, and he's happy to know that others are using it. A first question outside of that would be for me. So if you are using a USB 3 repeater, would that introduce any noises into the signal?
Actually, no. With the USB 3, all it's doing is it's taking your signal and boosting it enough to go the extra distance. If you can actually gang two of them together, you can go 32 meters. So it does not introduce any noise, but I can then control the camera directly from indoors in my house. Right now, I run a network, and I would have done this live tonight, except that squirrels ate my network cable. Otherwise, I would have shown you one of these objects live with the camera tonight.
So Tariq also mentioned, Tarek, I apologize, also mentions that his first target with the cameras was M5 and M13, and says that it was not bad at all. Sassy Photo asks, is this camera ASCOM supported?
ASCOM, absolutely. You can use this with any, the drivers come with the software, and it has everything you need. You can put it into any system, any computer system. It has the ASCOM drivers, so you can run it with, any of the other software out there. Absolutely.
Tarek also mentions that soon he'll buy a filter, then we'll be able to use both cameras for more tests and results. Sassiphoto also asks, I presume you can do live stacking too?
Okay, so this camera not only does live stacking, it does live average or live additive. I never use live additive because after 5 or 6 stacks, it blows out the whole image. So you use average more than anything else. It will also do live dark and flat extraction from the live feed. But if you are saving images, it only saves exactly what comes from the sensor. So your image on the screen will be very pleasing using live average stacking, but you have an issue in that you're not getting the full value. But for outreach, yes, it does a phenomenal job.
Chris Vaughn asks, is there a difference between Tube Sky and Tube View?
Not really. I've never used Tube View. I just used Tube Sky.
Okay. Robert Lennox from Toronto asks if you were using an auto-guider.
No, none of these are auto-guided. I did my polar alignment using SharpCap, and I'm only 10 arc seconds off from absolute North Celestial Pole.
And I believe Guy Yanis asked if this is an IMX183C sensor.
Let me just go back in my presentation and I'll tell you exactly what it is because it was captured there. It is the IMX1883, yes, C.
Awesome, and that is all of our questions for now.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.
Francois, I have a question myself. Is the camera being marketed as a long exposure deep sky camera or more for live viewing?
It's for both. You can literally, if you've got auto guiding, you can go for up to 5 minutes and no issues.
Okay. And the other question is that camera, the Touptek, is it a clone of one of the better known brands?
As I said, Paul, Touptek actually manufactures for ZWO and QHY.
I see.
So it's basically the same guts. The only difference is, and in fact, Touptek manufactures for Malincam, but Malincam has a couple of special circuits that Rock has designed that he puts in after the cameras get to Canadian shores. And then each one will only use their own branded software.
Okay. Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, François. Very interesting presentation.
It's my pleasure.